So first of all, we need to be able to convert time into the number of hours. So for example, if you worked for 4 hours and 30 minutes, what would that be as time but as a decimal? So here's the thing, and the first part of this is super logical. Well, there's 4 here, so it's going to be 4 point something. Yep, that's right, because you have 4 full hours. But the next part is not so obvious, because lots of people make the mistake of saying, well, it's 4.30 hours. There's a problem with that thinking, though, because when we write a decimal like this, the decimal is in the system where we have tens. We don't have 100 minutes in an hour, so that's why you can't do that. What you have to do instead is you have to think of, okay, you got 30 minutes. How much of the hour is that? Half. What's half as a decimal? 0.5. So it's going to be 4.5 hours. And 4 hours and 30 minutes is actually fairly straightforward, but I want to start there so we can see how it works. Now, if you're not sure, like if you think I'm making this up, you can always take the number of minutes and use your calculator and divide it by 60, which is the number of minutes in an hour. And if you do that, 30 divided by 60, you'll see that you get 0.5, which is why the 0.5 is what goes here. So if you worked 4 hours and 30 minutes, you will have worked 4.5 hours. Okay. Now, if you work 7 hours and 45 minutes, what would that be as a decimal? $7.75 hours. That's how many hours it would be. And again, if you're not sure where the 0.75 comes from, divide 45 by 60 and you get 0.75, which is where that 0.75 comes from. If you're not sure, you can always take the number of minutes and divide it by 60. Okay? These are some of the calculations we're going to be doing inside of the time card. Now, Drew works 7 hours and 45 minutes. He is paid $13 an hour. What's his time worked in hours to 2 decimal places? Now, this is, I think, to be honest with you, this is just a happy coincidence, but it shouldn't be overlooked that 7 hours and 45 minutes is actually right here. So the first part of this, as long as we are observant to see it, it's already done for us. It's 7.75. It's actually just what we already did. That's how many hours he works. Then what we need to do is take that 7.75, and it says he's paid $13 an hour. So we're going to multiply the number of hours he works by 13. So we're going to go 7.75 times 13. Very good. $100.75 is his gross pay. And we find that by multiplying his hourly rate by the number of hours he works, which is 7.75. Okay? All right. Now, with that said, we're going to start looking at time cards. Some jobs require that you use a time clock or time card to clock in when you get to work, and then you clock out when you leave work. everybody at this school, except for teachers, I believe, because I know I don't have to do this, but I think everybody else does, they use a time card and a time clock. So when they get here in the morning, they clock in. And at the end of the, and when they go home, if they go home for lunch, they would clock out. They'd clock back when they arrive in the afternoon, and they'd clock out at the end of the day. Now, if they do not hand in their time cards at the end of the week, they don't get paid. So you really want to make sure that you are clocking in and clocking out properly, okay? Now, some places such as the military or hospital might use 24-hour time instead of 12-hour time. For example, if you asked me when I was doing math yesterday, and I said 11. Now, am I meaning 11 a.m. or am I meaning 11 p.m.? Which one am I talking about? Now, truthfully, it's probably both of them. But the reality is unless I say a.m. or p.m., you don't know what time I'm talking about. So the military time tells you whether it's a.m. or p.m. based on the numbers involved. For example, in 12-hour time, 9:59 in the morning would be 9:59 a.m. And 9:59, and in 24-hour time, it would also be 9:59, like that. So morning, a.m. doesn't change, but 24-hour time or military time changes once you get past, well, once you get to 1 o'clock p.m. Because once you get to 1 o'clock p.m., then it's 1,300 hours. Once you get to 2 p.m., it's 1,400 hours. 3 p.m., 1,500 hours. So anything past 12, you add 12 to the time. So if it's 4:11 in the afternoon, we would call it 4:11 p.m. in 12-hour time. But in 24-hour time, you added 12 to the 4, and now it's 16:11. So if you see any hours that start past 12, you know they're in the afternoon or the evening. Okay? It's easier that way when we're doing time cards. Believe me, I don't use 24-hour time a lot myself, but if we're trying to interpret a time card and figure out how many hours somebody worked, 24-hour time is a lot easier to work with. Now here we do have a time card, and we have some rules here, and the rules are overtime is granted for any hours worked past 40, and it's paid out as time and a half. Find the gross pay by completing the time card. So, we have Erin Mayhem. She gets paid $25.28 an hour. Here's the hours she worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, in the mornings, in the afternoons, and we are going to fill this out. So, we have to look, we're going to do all the mornings first. So here's the deal. Let's look here, 8 to 12. How many hours does she work from 8 to 12? 4. So we put a 4 here. How many hours does she work from 7:30 to 12:30? 5. So we put a 5 there. How many hours does she work from 8:30 to 12:30? Correct. How about from 7:30 to 12? Be careful.
4.5.
Very good. 4.5 or 4.5. Excellent. That one is a little trickier, and sometimes people might goof up and they might say 5.5 hours. So you have to be careful. Some of these are a little trickier than others. From 7 to 12, how many hours does she work? 5. Very good. How about 9 to 12:30? 3.5. So that's how many hours she works each morning. Okay? We're going to do the same thing for the afternoons. Except there's just one less afternoon. All right. So we're going 12:30 to 1700. How many hours is it? 4.5. Awesome. 13 to 1600. How many hours? 3. 1330 to 1800. How many hours? Beautiful. 4.5. 1230 to 1830. 6. 1230 to 1745. No. I love the 5. Love it a lot. What's that?
5.25.
Beautiful. It's 5 hours and 15 minutes, which is 5.25. Half hours are easier. Full hours should be easy. Quarter or 3/4 hours are tougher. Be careful. Any questions about that? Okay. So, there's no evening rates here. So to figure out the total, what we're going to do is we are going to take 4.5, add them together to give us 8.5, and that goes in the total at the end of Monday. And then we're going to repeat it for the other days. So how many hours does she work Tuesday?
3.
Very good. Wednesday?
8.5.
Excellent. Thursday?
10.5.
10.5. Friday?
10.25.
Excellent. Saturday?
3.5.
Beautiful. So we have all of our daily totals there. All right, so here's what we do now. We should figure out the total number of hours by adding, of course. So, did anybody already do this for me?
Yeah.
What'd you get?
49.25.
49.25?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to write that down under the total number of 49.25 as the total number of hours. Now, here's the deal. How many of those hours are regular hours?
40.
40. So we put 40 under regular. In this case, there's no premium hours. Premium, if you remember from the overtime pay lesson, is when you work night hours and you get a bump in your hourly rate. That doesn't apply here. But there is overtime, and it is time and a half. And how many hours are those?
9.25.
Beautiful. 9.25, the rest of them. So if there's 40 regular hours, there's 9.25 overtime hours. And now, after that, we're going to go ahead and figure out the regular pay, the overtime pay, and of course, then, the gross pay. So, Erin's paid $25.28 an hour. So that is the regular rate. $25.28. What's 40 times 25.28? Yes. $1,011.20. Make sure to put your money to 2 decimal places, please. Now, the hourly rate for overtime is going to be $25.28 times 1.5. And I think that's going to be, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's going to be 37.92. Is it?
Yes.
Cool. So now figure out what 37.92 times 9.25.
$350, $76.76.
Very good. 350.76. And now we're going to add these together. So that's going to be 1361.96. That is the gross pay. All right, so we've got two more examples. This example is a little different because the overtime stuff. What makes this question a little different is the fact that overtime is not based on a weekly total. Overtime is based on a daily total. So the example says David Taylor works as a city bus driver. He works an 8-hour workday, and any time he works above that is considered overtime. He gets paid time and a half. Complete the time card below and find his gross pay. So we've got David. His hourly rate's $29.10. Let's go. So we're going to look at each of the times here. Monday morning, how many hours does he work?
5,
Good. Tuesday morning,
5,
5. Wednesday morning,
4.5,
4.5. Thursday morning,
4.75,
beautiful, 4.75. Those quarter hours are tricky, but not to Kyle. And Friday morning, 5.5. Awesome. So those are all the totals for the mornings. Okay? Those are all the totals for the mornings. Let's go ahead and let's go to the afternoon. Here we are. In the afternoon, he works how many hours on Monday?
3,
3. Tuesday?
5,
Beautiful. Wednesday?
3.5,
3.5. Thursday?
3,
3. Friday?
4.5,
Excelente. 4.5. Bang on. That's it. That's the trickiest one out of all the morning or afternoon times because you're going past an hour and you're dealing with quarter hours. It's 4.5 for Friday afternoon. Now we will add up these times and figure out our total for each of the days. So Monday, his total would be,
8,
what's that?
8,
Yes. Tuesday?
10,
Good. Wednesday? 8.
8,
Thursday?
7.75,
Excellent. Friday?
10,
Yes. Okay. So this is a little less obvious, but now what we need to do is hone in on these daily totals and almost on the, I don't know, like almost outside or close to outside. We need to kind of try and figure out if there's any overtime that's worked here. So Monday, does he work any overtime? No, because he doesn't work over 8 hours. So there's no overtime on Monday. Any overtime on Tuesday?
Yes.
2 hours. Wednesday?
No, no,
No. Thursday?
no,
No. Friday?
yeah.
2 hours. So he works 2 hours of overtime on Tuesday and 2 hours of overtime on Friday. So now what we're going to do is fill in the bottom part of this. So first of all, we know that he works and we know that overtime is time and a half. How many overtime hours does he work? 4. Now we got to figure out how many regular hours he works. So Maybe the easiest thing to do would be figure out the grand total. So the grand total would be adding all of these together. So this would be 26, 36, 43.75. So 43.75 is the total number of hours altogether. Now, if 4 of those are overtime hours, then to figure out the regular hours, we can take 43.75 and subtract 4. When we do that, what do we get? 39.75. So that's the number of regular hours. Now the regular rate is $29.10. And to figure out what the overtime rate is, we're going to multiply that by 1.5. What do we get? Giddy up. 43.65. And then what we'll do is we'll figure out the regular pay and the overtime pay. What's the regular pay?
1,156, and then it says 725.
Yeah, so 725, we'll bump that up to 73. We'll round that up because that 5 bumps that 2 up to a 3. So it's $1,156.73. How about the overtime pay?
$174.60.
Excellent. If we put that together, I think we're going to get $1331.33. Thank you. Make sure to put your dollar signs on the end anyway. $1331.33. That is David's gross pay. And again, the difference between this question and the first one we did is that overtime was based on a daily basis and not on the weekly total. The question will always spell out how overtime is calculated. And maybe there might even be questions where there's no overtime calculated. Just because you have a job where you have an hourly rate doesn't mean that overtime is a possibility. Especially if you're working for a company or maybe even the government, they might not want to pay overtime. Then of course you might have a choice whether or not you want to work extra time. And if you don't want to work, well, then you don't have to. That's a different story. But just because you work extra does not mean you get paid for overtime. Here.